A single word. 4 letters. Sent at 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday night that felt like any other. It wasn't a casual check-in, a late-night thought, or an accidental dial. It was a digital scream into the void. Help. When Sarah Jenkins pressed send, she was sitting in her parked car on the shoulder of a desolate fog-choked stretch of Highway 9. The engine was still warm, the doors were locked, and the headlights were cutting a weak path through the mist. But locks are only metal, and metal can be broken. 3 hours later, a passing cyclist would find her vehicle abandoned, the driver's side window shattered into 1,000 glittering diamonds on the asphalt. Sarah was gone. No struggle in the mud. No blood on the seats. Just a cell phone lying on the floorboard with a screen that refused to go dark, its low battery warning flickering like a dying pulse in the silence of the woods. Tonight we dive into the chilling disappearance and tragic end of Sarah Jenkins, a case where the truth was hidden in plain sight and the killer was someone who had been watching her every move from the darkness for longer than anyone dared to imagine. This is a story of obsession, the failure of security, and the terrifying reality of what happens when the person you think is protecting you is the one hunting you. Welcome to Dark Case Files. To understand how Sarah ended up on that highway, we have to look at the life she was trying to build and the shadow that was slowly engulfing it. Sarah Jenkins was 24 years old, a dedicated nursing student known for her sharp wit and a laugh that could brighten the dimmest hospital ward. She lived in Oak Creek, a town so quiet and suburban that the local news usually consisted of bake sales and high school football scores. It was the kind of place where people often forgot to lock their back doors, trusting in the collective safety of their neighbors. But Sarah didn't feel safe. For the past 6 months, she had lived with the constant gnawing sensation that she was being watched. It started with the phone calls, heavy breathing from blocked numbers that would disconnect the second she spoke. Then the gifts began to appear. A single red rose placed delicately under her windshield wiper. A scrap of paper with her favorite song lyrics left on her doorstep. Even more chilling. Someone had used white chalk to write, "I'm always watching," on the pavement of her driveway while she slept. The local police, overworked and perhaps a bit cynical, dismissed it as low-level harassment. They told her she likely had an overzealous admirer and advised her to change her phone number. But Sarah knew this wasn't admiration. It was a slow-motion invasion of her life. She felt the cold prickle on the back of her neck every time she walked from the library to her car. She began carrying pepper spray and checking her backseat every time she entered her vehicle. Her primary suspect was Mark Thorne, her ex-boyfriend. Mark was a local mechanic, charismatic, handsome, but possessed of a volatile temper that had led to their breakup 3 months prior. Mark hadn't taken the split well. He had sent dozens of emails pleading for a second chance, followed by angry texts accusing her of moving on too fast. He had an alibi for most nights, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that he was the one lurking in the shadows. On the night of October 14th, Sarah decided to attend a friend's birthday party at a small lounge downtown. She wanted to feel normal again, to be surrounded by people and music. However, the anxiety followed her. Witnesses at the party noted that Sarah seemed distracted, frequently checking her phone and glancing at the entrance. At 1:30 a.m., she told her friend she had a splitting headache and decided to drive home. It was a 15-minute trip. She never made it. The timeline of Sarah's final hours is a descent into a nightmare that plays out like a psychological thriller. At 1:50 a.m., security footage from a 24-hour gas station on the edge of town shows Sarah pulling up to the pumps. She doesn't buy gas. Instead, she enters the store and buys a single bottle of water. In the grainy footage, you can see her looking over her shoulder, her eyes darting toward a dark SUV parked just outside the reach of the station's lights. She looks exhausted, terrified, and utterly alone. She pulls out of the lot at 1:58 a.m. Only 7 minutes later, a truck driver traveling in the opposite direction reported seeing a car matching Sarah as being followed so closely by a dark vehicle that their bumpers were almost touching. The follower had their high beams on, intentionally blinding the driver in front. Imagine the sheer terror of that moment. You are on a stretch of road where the streetlights are burned out or non-existent. The woods press in on both sides. Every time you speed up to create distance, the lights behind you surge forward. Every time you slow down, they stay glued to you. Sarah likely pulled over to the shoulder of Highway 9, hoping the harasser would simply pass by. It was a fatal mistake. They didn't pass. They pulled in right behind her, their high beams illuminating the interior of her small sedan like a stage. At 2:14 a.m., Sarah reached for her phone one last time. She didn't call 911, perhaps she thought they wouldn't arrive in time, or perhaps she was too panicked to speak. She sent a single word to her sister Emily. Help. Emily was a heavy sleeper and had silenced her notifications for the night. She wouldn't see the message until 6 a.m. By the time Emily woke up and felt the blood drain from her face, Sarah was already gone. When the sun rose over Oak Creek the next morning, the town's sense of security died with the discovery of the car. Lead Detective Miller arrived on the scene at 7:45 a.m. He noted several disturbing details. Sarah's purse was still in the car, tucked under the passenger seat. Her wallet contained over $200 in cash. Her laptop was in the trunk. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This was a targeted abduction. The driver's side window had been shattered from the outside using what appeared to be a spring-loaded center punch, a tool used by emergency responders, and, occasionally, car thieves to break glass silently and instantly. There were no skid marks on the road, meaning Sarah hadn't tried to peel away. She had been trapped. The investigation initially focused heavily on Mark Thorne. When detectives arrived at his house at 9 a.m., they found him in his driveway, meticulously washing his black SUV. To the police, he seemed too calm, his movements too rehearsed. He claimed he had been home all night, but a neighbor provided a statement saying they heard a loud engine leave Mark's driveway around 1:30 a.m. and return just before the sun came up. Mark was taken in for questioning, but he maintained his innocence with a chilling level of composure. He admitted he was obsessed with Sarah, but claimed he loved her too much to ever hurt her. The case took a desperate turn when Sarah's phone provided a digital breadcrumb trail. Although she had been snatched, she had previously installed a family tracking app at her sister's request after the stalking started. The phone had been left in the car, but the app recorded the last known location of her smartwatch, which was still synced to the phone's Bluetooth for a short distance. The signal pinged near a massive, partially constructed housing development on the outskirts of the county. Teams of officers and K-9 units swarmed the construction site. It was a labyrinth of concrete foundations, open trenches, and skeletal wooden frames. For hours, they found nothing but muddy boot prints and discarded building materials. But as the sun began to set on the second day of the search, a junior officer noticed something out of place. Near a freshly poured concrete slab, there was a patch of earth that looked disturbed, as if someone had tried to rake over it in a hurry. Under the cold light of flashlights, they began to dig. 3 feet down, they found a shallow grave. Sarah Jenkins was still wearing her favorite blue sweater from the party. She had been strangled with a thin cord, but the most haunting detail was what the killer had left behind. Around her neck was a silver locket, a piece of jewelry Sarah's mother said she had lost 3 months prior. The killer hadn't just taken her life. He had been keeping pieces of her as trophies long before the murder. Just as the public was calling for Mark Thorne's head, the forensic results from the autopsy came back and flipped the case on its head. DNA found under Sarah's fingernails collected during her final struggle did not match Mark Thorne. It belonged to an unknown nail not in the national database. The community was paralyzed with fear. If it wasn't the obsessed ex, then who was it? Detective Miller went back to the very beginning. He reread every single harassment report Sarah had filed. He noticed a pattern. Every time Sarah reported a chalk message or a gift, the same individual was the one to discover it or arrive first on the scene to comfort her. That man was David Miller, a 32-year-old private security guard hired by Sarah's apartment complex to patrol the grounds at night. David was the ultimate nice guy. He was the one who walked Sarah to her door. He was the one who encouraged her to file reports against Mark, effectively using the ex-boyfriend as a smokescreen for his own crimes. He had used his master key to enter her apartment while she was at school to steal the locket. He had tracked her movements using the complex's security cameras. On the night of the murder, David had finished his shift early and followed her to the party, waiting in the darkness of the parking lot for her to leave. When police raided David Miller's apartment, they found a literal house of horrors. His walls were covered in candid photos of Sarah, hundreds of them, taken through her bedroom window, through the glass of the library, and even from the bushes outside the nursing school. They found the spring-loaded punch used to shatter her window. Most damningly, they found a journal detailing his plan to save her from her toxic life, so they could be together forever. In his twisted mind, killing her was the only way to ensure she would never leave him. In 2025, David Miller was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During the sentencing, he sat expressionless as Sarah's sister, Emily, read a victim impact statement. She spoke about the help text, and how that single word now haunts every silent moment of her life. Mark Thorne, though cleared of the crime, was a broken man. The suspicion of the town had cost him his business and his home. He left Oak Creek and hasn't been heard from since. The case of Sarah Jenkins led to a massive overhaul of stalking laws in the state, mandating that police take low-level harassment reports more seriously and providing better resources for victims. But for Sarah, these changes came too late. Her story remains a chilling reminder that sometimes the person who offers to walk you to your car is the very person you should be running from. Sarah did everything right. She was cautious, she was aware, and she reached out for help. Yet the shadows were still able to reach her. This brings us to a question that should make us all look a little closer at the people in our lives. In a world where we are constantly monitored by cameras and GPS, how can a predator still operate in broad daylight? Was David Miller a master manipulator, or did the system simply choose to look the other way because he wore a uniform? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps us keep these stories alive and keeps the pressure on for justice in unsolved cases. If this deep dive into the case of Sarah Jenkins resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to Dark Case Files. We are dedicated to bringing you the most professional, detailed, and haunting true crime narratives every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay safe, and always watch the shadows. They might be watching you back.